yeah, being young.
Welcome to 20-Allthings. My name is Kevin, and this is a web project dedicated to people in their 20s. For today's episode, we have a returning guest. Please welcome life coach Jason Cornillez.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. Pleasure to be here.
Yes, it is a pleasure to have you on the show again. I think that, just to recap for everyone listening or watching, a few episodes ago, we had Jason to talk about empathy in our 20s and how to navigate all of that. And particularly why I wanted to bring you back on the project is I definitely want to continue the conversation on emotions, especially in our 20s. Like for me personally, when I was in my 20s, it was one of the most emotionally charged times of my life. And it was also just for me trying to understand how to grow and be mature in my emotions. And so let's take a pause real quick. And I want to know, Jason, how have you been since you last spoke?
Thanks for asking. I've been really good. My family's healthy. I'm healthy. My kids are healthy. It's just something to be grateful for. And I'm just blessed to be here in this space with you and just having conversations with like-minded people who are just trying to develop themselves and just here to serve.
Yeah, that's really cool. And I know that we talked about, I think, a few weeks ago or a few months ago when we last spoke, like you finally got that certification as a life coach.
Yeah.
And so since that time we last spoke, how has that been for you?
It's been well. I'm still learning the ropes, really how to learn a business as much as being a newfound entrepreneur. So I'm trying to get as many entrepreneurs around me so I can just learn the business side of it as much as I can.
That's awesome. And today we would love to learn from you, and particularly let's continue the conversation about emotions. And recap for those who for everyone listening or watching, you did mention about the importance of having emotional boundaries. And that was something that really stood out to me in our last conversation. I'd love to pick things up from there. And so for you, Jason, how would you view emotional boundaries, and what would be how did that play out in your 20s?
Well, first of all, I'm not an expert on emotional boundaries. I'm not a psychologist, but I'm very in tune with my emotions. I'm a student of psychology, and I'm an expert on my own life and my own emotions. So with that said, I just feel like emotional boundaries is really separating your own feelings to another person's feelings, and knowing how you feel, and knowing that how the other person feels is their responsibility. And how do we get there? It's usually with some emotional intelligence. It's the ability to understand, use, manage your own emotions to essentially create peace in your life.
That's really great. Thank you for sharing that. And I think that what you mentioned, and I think a lot of people struggle with, is being in tune with one's emotions. That's great. I think we'd love to learn more about that, and let's explore that topic more.
Yeah.
I know that, especially here in Silicon Valley, where we are currently in, a lot of people come from it from from a perspective of thinking of okay, well, I know what I think about this, but when you ask them on certain things of well, how are you feeling about certain topics, they have sometimes, especially for me at times, there's difficulty in expressing those type of emotions. So let's talk about that part. How was that journey from the point of where you started to being in tune to your emotions?
Well, you said something interesting right there, where it was thinking rather than feeling. And we are more of emotional beings rather than thinking beings. And a lot of the times people don't ask how you feel about a certain thing. And I just think that's very, very interesting that we don't say that enough and explore how people feel. And especially in your 20s, when you are just trying to really spread your wings, but then you get limited by so many external factors from people telling you what to do, asking you to do things. And I just feel like you are not being vulnerable enough and authentic to show up for your own self.
Yeah, I think that's Very interesting. Well, like from the perspective then of like people who are listening or watching and they really want to start somewhere to be more emotionally expressive, for some people, like at times I feel this way of like, it's just hard to find the right words to even describe what I'm feeling.
Yeah.
So how do you navigate that then?
Yeah, I really just feel like it's kind of being in tune with yourself, kind of being in solitude and giving yourself that pause. And especially when things arise externally in your life, I feel like there's the power in the pause to acknowledge like how you're feeling in that moment. A lot of people don't acknowledge how they feel when something comes up. It's more reactive rather than responsive. So when I say that, it really is something where, like I said, we're emotional beings, and we don't tend to acknowledge how we feel in that present moment. Like, for example, if someone is angry with you about whatever it is, about doing the dishes or something, and they wanted you to do the dishes, it's something where, okay, what's fact and what's feeling right now? Okay, the fact is that the dishes need to be done, but the feeling is this person is angry with me. So what is the normal like situation in that time? Are you going to be angry back? Most of the time, yes, because the tone in someone talking to you is anger. So that's all you see is anger. But then what the fact is that those dishes need to be done. So maybe we need to explore how to get it done together, or what do you need from me? How can I support you? Those type of questions are never asked when someone is coming at you with big emotions.
That's very fascinating. I think that, well, just wording that of like figuring out, well, what truly is fact and what truly is feeling, that's definitely a good reminder for a lot of us, especially when we're in those emotional moments. One thing that you mentioned is the power of pause. And so can you expound more on that? And specifically also for people in their 20s who are listening, like how can they properly execute the pause?
Just like I did right now, I took a breath.
Okay.
You know, it's like you take a breath, you acknowledge what the person just said, and listen and empathize with what they're saying at that present moment, and really just really take in what you're hearing in that moment. So it's taking a breath, you know, exhaling, giving you permission to acknowledge how you feel and process that. And that takes practice. It's like a daily practice of whatever that looks like, of meditation, journaling, whatever. But it really is sitting with yourself and being in solitude and knowing that you are an emotional being.
Yeah.
Things are going to be coming at you and you're going to feel a certain type of way, but those things they don't make you. You know, these emotions don't make you. They are just an emotion. It's there. You can acknowledge them. It's temporary, and then you can move right along. I think it's that pausing to acknowledge how you feel and labeling how you feel in that moment, so you can just let it pass.
Yeah. And so with all those steps, I think it goes back to like a certain phrase that you mentioned earlier too, about how to be more responsive rather than being reactive. Is that correct?
Yeah, correct.
Did I understand it correctly? Okay. So then with all of that, I know that you are a life coach, as you mentioned earlier, and then you're also a father, and you mentioned that earlier too. So with all of those roles in your life, like how has now everything that you've learned in your 20s come together in this current phase of your life, and how you navigate emotions of other people, whether it's like people you're coaching or whether it's your children or whoever that you interact with? Like, what's your advice to people in their 20s that you may have learned over the course of the past few years that may be helpful for people who are watching or listening?
Right. Well, I mean, I'll tell you right now, my mantra is my kids are always watching. So it's something where if I am exuding some loving kindness to other people and empathy to other people, my kids see that. And there's one thing they teach in school where it's the golden rule is treat others how you want to be treated, you know, and it really is just setting these type of boundaries with people to know that you come first in this relationship, because if I don't take care of myself first, then I can't take care of everyone else. I look at it as like a pyramid where you know, you're at the top, and it really is taking care of yourself, loving yourself, learning how to care and soothe yourself through all these big emotions. And so you don't have to react to so many other things that may bring anger, resentment, jealousy, guilt, like all these negative emotions that they have. But I put the air quotes for negative emotions because I think all emotions are good. Like, they are just indicators of how to respond rather than to react.
Yeah. No, it's pretty interesting. I think that, well, especially from the perspective that you are coming from, well, I know, well, especially from a male perspective, like, it's hard to even admit what you're feeling.
Oh, yeah.
And, well, for people who are listening or watching, whether you're male or whether you have men in your life, like, I think that a lot of people can agree to that statement. So for that scenario then, like, how can we navigate that, especially for people in their 20s, like, whether they're, well, I just said men in general because, like, that's what usually is the case. I'm not saying everyone is that way, but let's just take a step back then of, like, people who are just having that, who just have a certain perspective of showing emotions and how that can be a weakness. Like, what's your advice to that, and how can we reframe our thinking on that?
Well, I mean, you're talking about someone who's having big emotions, so you're talking about someone who could be not emotionally intelligent at that time in their life. Yeah. So is that what
it could be that, or it could just be that they're just not used to, or they just don't want to express themselves emotionally because for whatever reason. Yeah. And so how would you process that? Or what would be your
I mean, well, as a life coach, I would just want to be curious. You know, I would want to be curious about what those emotions are and why those emotions are making you behave in a certain way. And it's something where if you have support systems in your life, if they are not pointing those things out, then it's going to be really hard for you to navigate through life and build relationships moving forward if you can't manage your own emotions. Because it's if you're avoiding your emotions, you're not showing up authentically to another person. It's like the most loving thing that you can do in life is show up authentically and to let people know how you want to be loved. And it's like, how can anyone love you if you don't authentically show them how you love? Because you're not showing them authentically who you are.
Yeah,
you know,
for sure. And then really view emotions as a way to show other people how authentic you are.
Yeah, you're just blocking people out at that time. You know, you're avoiding the emotions, meaning you're not showing up for the other person and showing them who you are. And it's really a disservice. It's really kind of being dishonest with that person as you kind of go through life together.
Yeah, that's really great. Like, thank you so much for that. And we hope that the people watching or listening really are encouraged to be more authentic in their lives. And so, Jason, definitely before we wrap things up, I know that you are a co-host of a podcast, and I'd love for the people who are watching and listening to know more about that.
Yeah, it's the second season of the Man to Man podcast. I was a guest in the first season, and now I'm a co-host for the second season. It's all about fatherhood. I know a lot of people in their 20s are going to be soon to be fathers, or their fathers already. It's a great space for men to be vulnerable, and also for anybody to listen, even women, to just see that men are trying to be better. They're trying to create a space where they actually talk and be vulnerable, and just try to be better for everyone around them.
There you go. It's called the Man to Man
podcast.
Man to Man podcast.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Jason, again, for all of those, those ideas and lessons that you have taught us today. Like I said earlier, we really hope that people who are watching or listening further understand what it means to navigate emotions in their 20s and also what it really means or truly means to be authentic. Again, thank you so much, Jason.
Thanks for having me.
We wish you all the best with your life coaching and also with your new podcast.
Thank you so much.
Okay, well, that's a wrap for us today. For those of you who are listening or watching, we're so thankful that you are tuned in. We are on YouTube if you want to watch all the videos, all our past videos, or if you want the audio version, we are on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks so much for tuning in and have a great day. Bye.
Yeah. Look. Yeah, I'm young, but I'm hungry. Here to learn, I won't let you take it from me. Grown talk, yeah, I'm talking 20-something. I don't know about much, but know one thing. I'm only good at being young. I'm only good at being young.